Rambam, Maimonides' laws. We are going to learn today the laws of animals and feeding animals. Interesting laws. So we're in chapter 13, the laws of schirus, rentals, and so an animal should be given the opportunity to eat whatever, whenever it works with produce, whether the produce is still attached to the ground or has been harvested. Right? So an animal is working for you, gotta feed it. Even if it's not your animal, right? It's got nothing to do about being your animal. Because if you rented the animal, you know, still gotta let it eat while you're making it, plow the field, for example. Similarly, if it may partake of produce from the burden it is carrying until it has been unloaded, provided the person caring for the animal does not take the produce in hand and feed it. How would it do it then? Until once it's unloaded, it's no longer doing labor, so therefore you can't take from that food. It's when it's laboring, you could do it. We learned the laws yesterday also of someone who's laboring for you in your field about the laws that they can take from produce, right? No, similar here. Uh-huh. So the laws learned from do not muzzle your animal when it is doing work. So why? Because muzzling it doesn't give it the opportunity to eat while it's working. Therefore, you have to allow it. But that's only from what it can take on its own, not what you feed it, right? So obviously, if it's my grain, I could feed it because it's my grain. But if it's someone else's grain that I'm carrying to market, I can take from that. I cannot take from that grain and feed the animal because it's on my grain, right? So I can't do that. But I have to allow it to be able to eat whatever it chooses to eat on its own while it is doing work, right?
So if
That's what I'm obliged to do.
so if it manages to have access to the grain that is not yours, it's not allowed to come to grain.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, first of all, how would it get it?
I'm looking at it for
Yeah, it sounds that way, but I'm not clear on that. Sounds that way, but seemingly that should be a difficulty. Okay. Halacha number 2. Whoever prevents an animal from eating while it is working should be punished by lashes. As the verse says, do not muzzle an ox while threshing. The prohibition applies to an ox and to all other species of animals and beasts, whether a kosher animal or a non-kosher animal. Similarly, it applies with regard to the threshing and all other types of work with produce. The Torah speaks about an ox threshing only to mention the most common instance. Okay. An employer is not liable if he muzzles a worker. He is, however, liable for muzzling an animal. Whoa. Right. So if you're wearing a mask, you can tell all of your workers to mask. Right. You can't do that to an animal. Despite whether he muzzles an animal while he's working with it or muzzles it beforehand and works with it while muzzled. He's liable even if he muzzles it with his mouth. I mean, with his mouth.
I would have to do slow to respond to that.
Huh?
I wonder how today's law would respond to the fact that the employer is not liable if muscles his employee.
I don't know. Because when you muzzle an animal, it has no way to unmuzzle itself. You muzzle a person, they can unmuzzle themselves, right? I don't know what it means or what the context of that is. I don't know. I understand because, right? Oh, no, no, 1 second. It doesn't mean you could do it. It just means you're not liable for lashes if you do it to a worker. So a worker can take off the muzzle. The animal can't. That's doesn't mean you could muzzle the person. It says you're not liable. Liable means just the consequence of lashes. So to the worker, you wouldn't have the consequence of lashes because he could take it off. The animal can't. He doesn't have hands to take off the muzzle. The worker could, so you won't be liable. Doesn't mean you're allowed to. Doesn't mean that's the way I just realized. It doesn't mean you're allowed to. It just means there isn't the consequence. You're not allowed to do that, right?
Okay.
The question is, are you going to get punished for doing that? Are you going to get lashes for it specifically, right? Fascinating. Okay, when a person rents an animal, muzzles it, and then threshes with it, he receives lashes and must pay the owner for the value of 4 kabin of grain for a cow and 3 kabin for a donkey. Although generally a person does not receive both lashes and financial penalty for the same transgression, an exception is made in this instance because the renter was obligated to provide the animal with its sustenance from the time he pulled it from him, and he's not liable for lashes until he threshes with the animal while muzzled. Aha! Because there's 2 things here. Usually we don't, right? What did Rambam say here? Usually you don't get a financial penalty if you're going to get lashes, or the opposite. If you're going to pay the financial penalty, then you're not going to get lashes. But here, that's only when they came together, the 2 transgressions. But here they came separately. When do you become liable? When you rent a cow for the feeding of the cow? The moment that you rented it, you pulled the reins, you took it into your possession, you're liable now. When did you become liable for lashes? It was only when you muzzled it. That was later. They came at 2 different times, so therefore they're 2 different transgressions, and therefore 2 different consequences based on that. It's only when the 2 things came at the same time that you don't get both.
It's one or the other.
Right. Okay. Wow, look at this. When a Jew threshes with a cow belonging to a non-Jew, to a Gentile, he is subject to violating the prohibition against muzzling, because it's got to do about the animal. And there's a commandment to a Jew. By contrast, if a non-Jew, a Gentile, threshes with an ox belonging to a Jew, he's not subject to violating this prohibition. Wow. Why? Because it's a mitzvah that's one of the 613 that is upon a Jew and not upon a non-Jew.
The very same action.
Wow.
But it's one,
Yeah. Because it's an obligation for a Jew, not an obligation for a non-Jew to act this way. Right? By the way, it doesn't mean the non-Jew could do that necessarily. It just means they don't violate and have a liability. Maybe no, maybe they don't violate it at all, because it's not. Although, why would it not be in the category of the 7th mitzvah, Tzar Ba'alei Chaim, of causing pain to an animal? Seemingly, it should be under that category.
For the Gentile, it does not. For the Gentile, it's not required to observe this mitzvah. This applies even if the Gentile threshes the Jewish free.
Yeah, but I'm saying it, not that mitzvah, so not the liability, but the mitzvah of having pain, causing pain to an animal, you're not allowed to do, right? A limb from a live animal is to cause pain. Why would that not be under this? I don't know. But anyways, I gotta move on. Thank you, folks. Afreilach Chanukah.